A desperate 911 call in the middle of the night. A woman claiming to see dead men in her kitchen. And a police response that will challenge everything you believe about life, death, and justice. Sometimes the past refuses to stay buried, and sometimes the dead have unfinished business with the living. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell. This helps us bring you more powerful stories like this one. At 3:17 a.m. on October 31st, the Riverside County 911 Dispatch Center received a call that would become legendary among law enforcement. The caller was a 67-year-old woman named Dorothy Chen, and her voice carried a terror that veteran dispatchers had never heard before. 911, what's your emergency? There are men in my kitchen, Dorothy whispered, her voice trembling. Dead men. Outlaws who died 15 years ago, and they're standing in my kitchen right now. Dispatcher Janet Mills had handled thousands of emergency calls during her 20-year career, but something about Dorothy's tone made her lean forward in her chair. Ma'am, are you saying there are intruders in your home? I'm saying there are dead men in my home. Marcus Rivera, Tommy Santos, and Carlos Vega. They were killed in a motorcycle accident in 2009, and I watched them die. But they're standing in my kitchen, and they're looking for something. Janet exchanged glances with her supervisor. Mental health crisis calls were common, especially around Halloween, but Dorothy Chen sounded completely lucid despite the impossible content of her report. Mrs. Chen, I'm dispatching officers to your location. Are you in immediate danger? I don't know. They haven't seen me yet. They're searching through my cabinets like they're looking for something specific. But this is impossible. These men have been dead for 15 years. Mrs. Chen, can you safely get to a secure room and lock the door? Officer, you don't understand. These aren't living men who broke into my house. These are the ghosts of outlaws who died in front of my eyes. And I think they know I'm the one who killed them. The line went silent for a moment as the implications of Dorothy's words sank in. Ma'am, did you say you killed them? 15 years ago, I was driving home from my night shift at the hospital when I saw 3 motorcycle gang members attacking a teenage girl on a dark road. I tried to scare them away by honking my horn, but they started shooting at my car. So I ran them down with my vehicle. Janet felt chills run down her spine. Mrs. Chen, you killed 3 people in self-defense 15 years ago? I killed 3 outlaws who were assaulting an innocent girl. The police ruled it justifiable homicide. But now they're back, and they're in my kitchen, and I don't think they're here to forgive me. As Janet dispatched patrol units to Dorothy's address, she couldn't shake the feeling that this call was different from any mental health crisis she'd ever handled. Dorothy Chen sounded completely rational, completely aware of how impossible her claims were, and completely terrified of something that couldn't possibly exist. But in Riverside County, strange things had been happening lately. Reports of unusual sightings, unexplained phenomena, and encounters that defied logical explanation. Most were dismissed as pranks or delusions, but some veteran officers had begun to wonder if something genuinely supernatural was occurring in their jurisdiction. Officer Mike Rodriguez was first on scene, arriving at Dorothy's modest home at 3:31 a.m. The house was dark except for a single light in what appeared to be the kitchen. As he approached the front door, Rodriguez could swear he heard voices inside, male voices, speaking in Spanish, with the kind of rough edges that suggested gang affiliation. But that was impossible. According to the dispatch information, Dorothy Chen lived alone and had reported seeing dead men. Rodriguez knocked on the front door. Mrs. Chen, this is Riverside Police. We're responding to your 911 call. The voices inside immediately stopped. The house became completely silent. Mrs. Chen, are you safe? Can you come to the door? After a long moment, the front door opened to reveal an elderly Asian woman in a bathrobe, her face pale with terror but her demeanor completely composed. Officer, thank God you're here. But I need to warn you, what you're about to see is impossible. Rodriguez studied Dorothy's face, looking for signs of mental impairment or substance abuse. What he saw was a retired nurse with intelligent eyes and the kind of steady composure that came from decades of handling medical emergencies. Mrs. Chen, we received a report of intruders in your home. Officer Rodriguez, Dorothy said, reading his name tag, 15 years ago, I killed 3 members of the Devil's Backbone motorcycle gang to prevent them from assaulting a teenage girl. Tonight, those same 3 men are standing in my kitchen. I know how that sounds, but I need you to see for yourself." Rodriguez felt his hand move instinctively to his weapon. Whether Dorothy was experiencing delusions or something genuinely supernatural was occurring, there was clearly a perceived threat that required investigation. "Mrs. Chen, I need you to stay here by the front door while I check your kitchen. Officer, when you see them, don't try to arrest them. You can't arrest dead men. And don't try to shoot them. Bullets don't work on ghosts seeking revenge." As Rodriguez walked toward the kitchen, flashlight in one hand and service weapon in the other, he tried to prepare himself for whatever he might find. Mental health crisis, elaborate prank, or something that would challenge everything he believed about the nature of reality. What he found in Dorothy Chen's kitchen would haunt him for the rest of his life. Officer Rodriguez rounded the corner into Dorothy's kitchen and froze. 3 men in leather vests stood with their backs to him, searching through cabinets and drawers with methodical precision. They were solid, physical, completely real, except for one impossible detail. Rodriguez could see through them. The men were translucent, like figures made of smoke and shadow, but they moved with purpose and intelligence. Their motorcycle gang colors were clearly visible: Devil's Backbone patches, skull imagery, the kind of intimidating regalia that marked serious criminal organizations. "Police! Stop what you're doing and turn around slowly." The 3 figures stopped moving but didn't turn around. Instead, they began to fade, becoming more translucent until Rodriguez could barely make out their outlines. "What the hell?" Rodriguez whispered, his training completely inadequate for this situation. Then the figures solidified again, turning to face him with expressions of rage and menace that made Rodriguez's blood run cold. These weren't living men, but they radiated malevolence and intelligence that was unmistakably human. The largest of the 3, a man with prison tattoos covering his arms and neck, spoke in a voice that seemed to echo from somewhere beyond the physical world. "You cannot stop us, officer. We have unfinished business with the woman who sent us to hell." Rodriguez's hand trembled on his weapon. You're actually dead, aren't you?" "Dead, but not gone," replied the second figure, a thin man with scars across his face. "Dorothy Chen murdered us 15 years ago, and we've been waiting for the chance to collect our debt. She saved a girl from being assaulted. She interfered in Devil's Backbone business," snarled the third spirit. "And interference requires payment." Rodriguez activated his radio with shaking hands. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I need immediate backup at 1247 Maple Street. And I need to speak with a supervisor." "Unit 47, what's the nature of your emergency?" Rodriguez looked at the 3 ghostly outlaws, who were watching him with expressions of amusement. "Dispatch, I have a situation that doesn't fit normal protocols. I need someone here who can handle unusual circumstances." "Tell them," said the largest spirit, "that the dead don't recognize the authority of the living. Tell them that some debts follow you beyond the grave." Rodriguez felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool night air. "Mrs. Chen, are you still by the front door?" "I'm here, Officer Rodriguez." "Are you seeing them?" "I'm seeing something." "Mrs. Chen, I need you to tell me exactly what happened 15 years ago." Dorothy's voice carried from the front of the house, steady despite the impossible situation. "I was driving home from my shift at Riverside General Hospital. It was about 2 a.m., and I was taking the back road through the canyon to avoid highway construction." The 3 spirits listened to her story with expressions of growing anger. "I saw motorcycle headlights ahead, and when I got closer, I realized 3 men were attacking a teenage girl. They had her pinned against their bikes, and she was screaming for help." "The girl was trespassing on our territory," growled the scarred spirit. "She needed to learn respect." "I honked my horn and flashed my lights, trying to scare them away from her," Dorothy continued. "But instead of running, they started shooting at my car. I could hear bullets hitting my windshield." Rodriguez looked at the spirits, seeing confirmation of Dorothy's story in their expressions. "So I made a decision that haunts me to this day. I floored the accelerator and drove directly at them. I hit all 3 men with my car, killing them instantly." "Murder," whispered the largest spirit. Cold-blooded murder. Self-defense, Rodriguez corrected, though he couldn't believe he was arguing with ghosts. And defense of an innocent victim. The law agreed with Officer Rodriguez, Dorothy called out. The investigation ruled it justifiable homicide. The girl testified that these men would have killed her if I hadn't intervened. The spirits exchanged glances, and Rodriguez could sense them communicating in ways that transcended normal human interaction. Justifiable in your world, said the scarred spirit. But in the realm of the dead, all debts must be paid. What do you want? Rodriguez asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. We want Dorothy Chen to join us in death, replied the largest spirit. An eye for an eye, a life for 3 lives. That's not happening, Rodriguez said, though he had no idea how to stop supernatural entities from carrying out their threats. Officer Rodriguez, the third spirit said with a cold smile, you cannot protect the living from the vengeance of the dead. We have all the time in eternity, and she has only the remaining years of her mortal life. Rodriguez realized he was facing a situation that no police training had prepared him for. How do you arrest ghosts? How do you protect a living person from supernatural revenge? How do you enforce the law when the criminals exist beyond the physical world? But as he looked at the 3 spirits, Rodriguez noticed something that gave him an idea. They were searching Dorothy's kitchen for something specific, not just terrorizing her randomly. What are you looking for in her cabinets? He asked. The spirits stopped moving, and Rodriguez saw surprise in their translucent faces. You're not just here for revenge, Rodriguez continued. You're looking for something. What is it? The largest spirit's expression grew uncertain. We seek justice. No, Rodriguez said, pieces clicking together in his mind. You seek something Dorothy has that belongs to you. Something she took from you 15 years ago. Dorothy's gasp from the front door told Rodriguez he was on the right track. Mrs. Chen, what did you take from them? Dorothy Chen's voice carried from the front door, trembling with a truth she'd kept hidden for 15 years. Officer Rodriguez, after the accident, I found something at the scene that I kept. The 3 spirits turned toward the sound of her voice, their translucent forms becoming more solid as their attention focused. What did you find, Mrs. Chen? A backpack. One of the outlaws was carrying a backpack that was thrown clear when I hit them. I picked it up before the police arrived because I was curious about what kind of men would attack an innocent girl. Rodriguez felt the temperature in the kitchen drop noticeably. The spirits were becoming more agitated, more solid, more threatening. What was in the backpack? Money. A lot of money. And something else. Something that explained why they were so desperate to hurt that girl. The largest spirit roared with supernatural fury. She stole from us. She took what was ours. I took evidence of your crimes. Dorothy shot back, her fear replaced by righteous anger. I took proof of what kind of monsters you really were. Rodriguez positioned himself between the kitchen and the front door, though he wasn't sure what good it would do against supernatural entities. Mrs. Chen, I need you to tell me exactly what was in that backpack. $50,000 in cash, and photographs. Dozens of photographs of teenage girls, taken without their knowledge. Pictures of the girl they were attacking that night, pictures of other girls around town. A predator's collection. The scarred spirit hissed. Those belonged to us. Those belonged in police evidence. Dorothy replied. But I was afraid that if I turned them in, someone would ask why I'd taken the backpack in the first place. I was afraid they'd think I was stealing from a crime scene. Rodriguez began to understand the real story. So you kept the evidence, but you used it to identify the victims. I spent weeks going through those photographs, identifying every girl I could recognize. I contacted them anonymously, warning them that they'd been targeted by dangerous men. I helped some of them get restraining orders against gang members who were still alive. You saved those girls by warning them, Rodriguez realized. I saved those girls by using information from that backpack. But I also kept the money, and I felt guilty about it for 15 years. The third spirit stepped forward, his form becoming more solid and menacing. She profited from our deaths. I used that money to start a scholarship fund for at-risk teenage girls, Dorothy replied with dignity. Every penny went to helping girls escape the kind of danger you represented. Rodriguez looked at the three spirits, seeing their rage mixed with something else, frustration that their revenge wasn't as clear-cut as they believed. "So you're not here just for revenge," Rodriguez said to the spirits. "You're here because she has something that belonged to you, and you want it back." "The photographs," whispered the largest spirit. "We want our collection returned. So you can continue terrorizing those girls from beyond the grave?" Rodriguez demanded. "So we can rest," said the scarred spirit quietly. Rodriguez felt a shift in the supernatural atmosphere. "You can't rest because your collection was never properly dealt with? We are bound to this world until our business is finished," explained the third spirit. "Our collection must be resolved." Dorothy's voice carried understanding. "You want the photographs destroyed, don't you? You want them eliminated so you can move on." The spirits exchanged glances, and Rodriguez sensed that Dorothy had identified something crucial. 15 years we have wandered," said the largest spirit. 15 years we have been unable to rest because our earthly attachments remain in the world of the living." "The money doesn't matter," added the scarred spirit. "But the photographs, they bind us to this realm." Rodriguez began to see a solution. "Mrs. Chen, do you still have those photographs? I've kept them all these years as insurance. Evidence that these men were predators, in case anyone ever questioned my actions that night. Would you be willing to destroy them? If it meant these spirits could find peace and stop haunting you." Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. "Officer Rodriguez, those photographs are evidence of crimes. Destroying them feels wrong. But keeping them means these spirits will never find rest," Rodriguez pointed out. "And it means you'll never find peace either." "There's another consideration," Dorothy said slowly. "Some of those girls in the photographs are now adult women with families of their own. They might not want evidence of their victimization to exist anywhere in the world." Rodriguez realized that Dorothy was right. Sometimes justice meant letting the past stay buried. "Mrs. Chen, would you be willing to make a deal with these spirits? Destruction of the photographs in exchange for them leaving you in peace. And what guarantee do I have that dead outlaws will honor their agreements?" The largest spirit's form began to glow with an otherworldly light. "The dead cannot lie, Dorothy Chen. If we agree to leave you in peace, we will be bound by that promise for eternity." Rodriguez felt he was mediating the strangest negotiation in law enforcement history. But if it could resolve a supernatural threat and bring peace to both the living and the dead, it was worth attempting. "Mrs. Chen, are you willing to trust them?" "Officer Rodriguez, I've been afraid of these men for 15 years. If there's a chance to end that fear and help them find peace, I think it's worth the risk." Dorothy Chen walked slowly into her kitchen, moving past Officer Rodriguez to face the three translucent spirits who had haunted her dreams for 15 years. Up close, their supernatural presence was even more overwhelming. She could feel the cold emanating from their forms and sense the otherworldly energy that bound them to the physical realm. "Marcus Rivera, Tommy Santos, Carlos Vega," she said, addressing each spirit by name. 15 years ago, I ended your lives to save an innocent girl. Tonight, maybe we can find a way to give you the peace I took from you." The largest spirit, Marcus Rivera, studied Dorothy with eyes that seemed to see beyond the physical world. "You know our names. I learned your names from the police reports. I've carried the weight of your deaths every day since that night." "Good," hissed Carlos Vega, the scarred spirit. "You should carry that weight." "But Carlos," Dorothy continued, her voice gaining strength, "I've also carried the weight of knowing what you were planning to do to that girl. And to other girls. Your deaths saved lives." Tommy Santos, the third spirit, moved closer to Dorothy. "You speak of salvation, but you profited from our deaths. I used your money to save other girls from men like you. $50,000 became scholarships that helped dozens of at-risk teenagers escape dangerous situations." Officer Rodriguez watched this impossible conversation, marveling at Dorothy's courage in facing her supernatural tormentors. "Mrs. Chen," Rodriguez said carefully, "where are the photographs now?" Dorothy moved to a cabinet near the kitchen sink and pulled out a metal lockbox. "I've kept them here, along with all the documentation about the scholarship fund. Evidence that your money went to protecting the innocent. She opened the lockbox and revealed dozens of photographs, bank statements, and legal documents. The spirits' forms immediately became more solid as they sensed the proximity of their earthly attachments. "Those pictures," Marcus Rivera said, his voice carrying 15 years of supernatural longing, "they bind us to this world." "I understand that now," Dorothy replied. "But before I destroy them, I need to know something. Are you here for revenge, or are you here for redemption?" The three spirits exchanged glances, communicating through means that transcended normal human interaction. "We are here," Tommy Santos said slowly, "because we cannot rest while evidence of our earthly crimes exists in the world of the living." "But you're also here," Dorothy continued, "because you know those crimes were wrong. Aren't you?" The spirits fell silent, and Rodriguez could sense a profound shift in the supernatural atmosphere. 15 years in the realm of the dead," Carlos Vega whispered, "has given us perspective on our actions." "You've had 15 years to reflect on what you did to innocent people?" Marcus Rivera's translucent form seemed to diminish slightly. "Death is a teacher, Dorothy Chen. It shows you the truth about the life you lived." "And what truth did it show you?" "That we were monsters," Tommy Santos said quietly. "That our deaths saved lives we would have destroyed." Dorothy felt tears streaming down her face. "Then why are you here? Why are you tormenting me if you understand that stopping you was necessary?" "Because," Marcus Rivera replied, "we need forgiveness from the person who ended our earthly existence before we can find peace in death." The revelation hit Dorothy like a physical blow. These spirits weren't here for revenge. They were here for absolution. "You want me to forgive you?" "We want you to forgive us, and we want to ask forgiveness from the girls we terrorized," Carlos Vega said. "But we cannot find them in the spirit realm until our earthly attachments are severed." Officer Rodriguez began to understand the spiritual mechanics at work. "The photographs bind you to this world, but they also prevent you from reaching the people you wronged in life." "Exactly," Tommy Santos confirmed. "We are trapped between worlds until this business is resolved." Dorothy looked at the photographs in her hands, then at the three spirits who had terrified her for 15 years. "If I destroy these pictures, will you promise to use your freedom to seek forgiveness from your victims rather than revenge against me?" "We swear by the laws that govern the realm of the dead," Marcus Rivera said solemnly. "And if I forgive you for the terror you caused me, will you help those girls find peace with their past traumas?" "We will spend eternity protecting them from the kind of harm we once represented," Carlos Vega promised. Dorothy made a decision that transformed 15 years of fear into something approaching peace. She walked to her kitchen stove, turned on a burner, and began feeding the photographs into the flame one by one. As each picture burned, the three spirits became more translucent, their connection to the physical world weakening. "Marcus, Tommy, Carlos," Dorothy said as the last photograph turned to ash, "I forgive you. Not for what you did, but for what you became after death. I forgive your suffering, and I hope you find the peace that eluded you in life." The three spirits smiled, and for the first time, Rodriguez could see something other than menace in their expressions. He saw relief, gratitude, and something approaching joy. "Dorothy Chen," Marcus Rivera said as his form began to fade completely, "thank you for ending our earthly crimes and beginning our spiritual redemption." As the spirits disappeared into whatever realm awaited them, Dorothy collapsed into a chair, emotionally exhausted but finally free from the fear that had haunted her for 15 years. "Officer Rodriguez," she said quietly, "how do I write a police report about this?" Rodriguez looked around the empty kitchen, seeing no evidence that anything supernatural had occurred except for a small pile of ash near the stove. "Mrs. Chen, I think some things are better left unexplained." As the three spirits faded from the physical world, something unexpected happened. Instead of disappearing completely, they became visible in a different way, not as threatening presences, but as beings of light that seemed to exist in a space between the living world and whatever lay beyond. "Officer Rodriguez," Dorothy whispered, "they're still here." The spirits were transforming, their appearance shifting from the menacing outlaws they'd been in life to something more peaceful, more resolved. But they remained visible, as if they had unfinished business that went beyond their own redemption. Marcus Rivera's spirit, now radiating calm instead of menace, spoke with a voice that seemed to come from a great distance. "Dorothy Chen, The destruction of our earthly attachments has freed us to reveal a truth we could not speak while bound by our crimes." "What truth?" Dorothy asked. "The night you killed us, we were not acting alone. We were following orders from someone still living, someone who used our deaths to cover his own crimes." Officer Rodriguez felt a chill that had nothing to do with supernatural presence. "Someone used your deaths as a cover-up?" "Our leader, Vincent Snake Morrison, ordered us to attack that girl specifically," Tommy Santos' spirit explained. "She had witnessed Morrison committing a murder, and he wanted her silenced permanently." Dorothy gasped. "The girl I saved. She was a witness to murder?" "Morrison planned for us to kill her and make it look like random gang violence," Carlos Vega's spirit continued. "When you killed us instead, he let the world believe we died in a random encounter." "But the girl lived, which meant Morrison's murder witness was still alive," Rodriguez realized. "Morrison has spent 15 years believing that witness died with us," Marcus Rivera said. "He never knew that Dorothy Chen saved her life." Dorothy felt the world shifting around her. "Officer Rodriguez, if that girl witnessed a murder 15 years ago, and the killer thinks she's dead, then she's been living in danger without knowing it," Rodriguez finished. "And Morrison has been free to commit other crimes, believing his witness was eliminated." The three spirits exchanged glances, their forms becoming more solid as they prepared to reveal the final truth. "Vincent Morrison is now Chief of Police in Riverside County," Tommy Santos announced. The revelation hit Rodriguez like a physical blow. Chief Morrison, his ultimate superior, the man who'd been leading their department for the past decade, was a murderer who'd used gang violence to cover his crimes. "That's impossible," Rodriguez whispered. "Morrison joined law enforcement after our deaths," Marcus Rivera explained. "He used his knowledge of gang activities to build a reputation as an expert on organized crime. He's been hunting for the witness he thinks survived, using police resources to track down anyone who might threaten his secret." Dorothy stared at the spirits in horror. "How many people has he killed over the years?" "We don't know the full extent," Carlos Vega replied. "But from the spirit realm, we can sense the weight of his crimes. Many deaths, many cover-ups, all to protect the secret of his first murder." Officer Rodriguez realized the magnitude of what he was facing. Not just a supernatural encounter, but evidence of a criminal conspiracy that reached to the highest levels of his own department. "The girl I saved that night," Dorothy said slowly. "What was her name?" "Jennifer Walsh," Tommy Santos replied. "She witnessed Morrison strangling a prostitute behind a truck stop on Highway 60. Morrison was off-duty but in uniform, using his police authority to access vulnerable victims." "Where is Jennifer Walsh now?" The spirits focused their otherworldly senses, searching across dimensions for information about the living. "She lives in Phoenix under the name Jennifer Martinez," Marcus Rivera said. "She's a social worker who helps trafficking victims. She never reported what she saw because she was underage, alone, and afraid no one would believe her against a police officer." Rodriguez felt pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. Chief Morrison has been using police databases to search for Jennifer Walsh for 15 years. And he's been eliminating anyone who might have information about his original crime, Carlos Vega added. 3 private investigators, 2 former truck stop employees, 1 journalist who was researching unsolved murders from 2009. He's been killing people to cover up his first murder? Morrison has been using his position as chief of police to conduct a 15-year murder spree, Tommy Santos confirmed. Dorothy looked at Officer Rodriguez with growing urgency. "We have to warn Jennifer Martinez. We have to tell her that Chief Morrison is still alive and still hunting for her. Mrs. Chen, how do we explain to Jennifer Martinez that we learned about her danger from the ghosts of dead outlaws? How do we convince anyone that our chief of police is a serial killer based on supernatural testimony?" The 3 spirits began to glow brighter, their forms becoming more substantial. "Officer Rodriguez," Marcus Rivera said, "we can provide you with evidence that exists in the physical world. Morrison kept trophies from his victims, hidden in places that only the dead can see." "What kind of trophies?" "Personal items from each person he killed. Jewelry, identification, photographs. He stores them in a hidden compartment in his office, behind a false wall that no living person knows about." Rodriguez realized that the spirits were offering him a way to build a case against Morrison using physical evidence rather than supernatural testimony. "You're saying Morrison has incriminating evidence hidden in the police station?" "We are saying," Carlos Vega replied, "that the dead can see secrets that the living cannot. And we are offering to guide you to evidence that will expose Morrison's crimes and protect Jennifer Martinez." Dorothy stood up, her fear replaced by determination. "Officer Rodriguez, these spirits want to make amends for their earthly crimes by helping expose a murderer. Are you willing to trust them?" Rodriguez looked at the three glowing spirits, then at Dorothy Chen, an elderly woman who'd just negotiated peace with the ghosts of men she'd killed 15 years ago. "Mrs. Chen, I'm willing to trust them if it means stopping a killer and protecting an innocent woman." The spirit smiled, and Rodriguez realized he was about to embark on the strangest investigation in law enforcement history. A case where the dead would help the living expose corruption that had festered for 15 years. At 4:47 a.m., Officer Rodriguez found himself in the most surreal situation of his career, being guided through the Riverside County Police Station by three ghostly outlaws who claimed to know the location of evidence that would expose Chief Morrison as a serial killer. The spirits moved through the building like smoke, passing through walls and locked doors while Rodriguez used his security access to follow their path. Dorothy Chen waited in the patrol car outside, serving as a communication link between Rodriguez and the supernatural guides. "They're leading you to the 3rd floor," Dorothy whispered into Rodriguez's radio earpiece. "Chief Morrison's executive office suite." Rodriguez climbed the stairs quietly, aware that several night shift officers were still in the building. If he was caught breaking into the chief's office based on directions from ghosts, his career would be over, assuming he wasn't arrested for burglary. "Mrs. Chen, are you sure the spirits know what they're talking about?" "Officer Rodriguez, Marcus Rivera is standing right next to you. He says the hidden compartment is behind Morrison's bookshelf, concealed by a false wall that requires a specific sequence to open." Rodriguez entered Morrison's office using his master key, feeling like a criminal in his own workplace. The office was exactly what he'd expected: authoritative desk, awards and commendations covering the walls, photographs of Morrison with politicians and community leaders. "Marcus is pointing to the bookshelf behind the desk," Dorothy's voice crackled through his earpiece. "3rd shelf from the top, between the criminal law textbooks. Press the spine of California Penal Code Volume 3 and hold for 5 seconds. Rodriguez found the specified book and pressed it as instructed. Nothing happened. "Tell Marcus it didn't work. He says you need to press 2 books simultaneously. California Penal Code Volume 3 Foot and Evidence and Procedure Manual at the same time." Rodriguez pressed both book spines together and heard a soft click. A section of the bookshelf swung inward, revealing a hidden compartment approximately 2 feet square. Inside, Rodriguez found exactly what the spirits had promised: a collection of personal items that could only have come from victims of violent crimes. Jewelry, driver's licenses, cell phones, and photographs, all carefully organized and labeled with dates spanning 15 years. "My God," Rodriguez whispered. "They were right." "What do you see?" Dorothy asked. Rodriguez photographed the hidden compartment with his phone, documenting evidence that would end Morrison's career and life. Trophies from at least 20 different victims. Driver's licenses going back to 2009. "And Dorothy, there's a bracelet here labeled Jennifer Walsh, October 2009, the night you killed the 3 outlaws. He's been planning to kill her for 15 years and keeping a trophy in advance?" "That's exactly what he's been doing. And there are recent additions. A necklace labeled Maria Santos, Private Investigator, March 2024. A phone labeled David Kim, Journalist, August 2024. Rodriguez realized he was looking at evidence of murders that hadn't even been reported yet. People who'd been killed so efficiently that their deaths appeared accidental or were attributed to other causes. "The spirits are saying something," Dorothy reported. "Marcus Rivera wants you to look for a specific item, a police badge that doesn't belong to Morrison." Rodriguez searched through the trophies and found what Marcus had described: a police badge with the name Officer Janet Mills, and a date from 2018. "Mrs. Chen, he has a police badge from 2018. Officer Janet Mills. Tell the spirits I recognize that name. She was the dispatcher who took your 911 call tonight." "Marcus is showing extreme agitation," Dorothy reported. He's saying that Morrison killed dispatcher Mills because she'd begun to notice patterns in 911 calls related to his victims. She was investigating connections between missing persons reports and unsolved deaths. Rodriguez felt sick. Janet Mills had been found dead in her apartment 3 years ago, an apparent suicide by drug overdose. But if Morrison had been systematically eliminating anyone who might expose his crimes. There's more, Dorothy continued. The spirits are saying Morrison has been monitoring police communications tonight. He knows about my 911 call, and he knows you responded to my address. What does that mean? It means Morrison is on his way to the station right now to eliminate the evidence in his hidden compartment. And it means both you and I are now targets for elimination. Rodriguez heard elevator doors opening on the 3rd floor. Someone was coming, and at 5 a.m., it wasn't likely to be ordinary shift change. Mrs. Chen, someone's here. I need to get out of Morrison's office immediately. The spirits are saying Morrison has arrived. He's armed and he knows you're in his office. Rodriguez quickly photographed as many items as possible from the hidden compartment, then closed the secret panel. But as he moved toward the office door, he heard Morrison's voice in the hallway. Rodriguez, I know you're in there. Come out slowly with your hands visible. Mrs. Chen, Morrison has me trapped in his office. Marcus Rivera is telling me something, Dorothy whispered urgently. There's a second exit from Morrison's office that only the dead can see. A maintenance access panel behind the filing cabinet. Rodriguez had no choice but to trust supernatural guidance. He moved the filing cabinet and found a maintenance panel that opened onto a utility corridor he'd never known existed. Tell Marcus thank you, Rodriguez whispered as he crawled through the panel into the hidden corridor. But as he emerged into a different part of the building, Rodriguez realized that escaping Morrison's office was only the beginning. He now had evidence that his chief of police was a serial killer, but Morrison had the authority to declare him a rogue officer and hunt him down using all the resources of the police department. Mrs. Chen, I'm out of the office, but we have a bigger problem. Morrison controls this entire department. Who can I trust with this evidence? The spirits are conferring, Dorothy reported. They're saying there's an FBI field office in San Bernardino. Agent Sarah Walsh has been investigating police corruption in Southern California. Walsh? That name is familiar. Marcus is saying Agent Walsh is Jennifer Walsh's older sister. She became an FBI agent specifically to investigate corruption that might threaten her sister's life. Rodriguez felt the cosmic symmetry of the situation. The sister of Morrison's intended victim had become the FBI agent who could bring him down. Mrs. Chen, I need you to call the FBI immediately. Tell them Officer Rodriguez has evidence of multiple homicides committed by Chief Morrison. Tell them it's urgent and that Morrison is actively hunting us. Officer Rodriguez, Dorothy's voice carried new urgency, the spirits are warning me that Morrison just found his hidden compartment open. He knows someone discovered his trophies. Through the police station's windows, Rodriguez could see the first hints of dawn breaking over Riverside County. Soon the building would fill with day shift officers, making escape more difficult but also providing witnesses who might prevent Morrison from acting too boldly. Dorothy, I'm going to try to reach the FBI myself. If Morrison finds you before federal agents arrive, tell him I forced you to call 911 as part of some kind of mental health crisis investigation. What about the spirits? Rodriguez looked around the utility corridor, realizing he could no longer see the 3 ghostly outlaws. Where did they go? They're saying their earthly business is finished. By helping expose Morrison, they've made amends for their crimes. They're ready to move on to whatever comes after death. Are they leaving? Marcus Rivera wants to tell you something directly. Rodriguez felt a sudden presence beside him in the corridor, though he couldn't see anything. Then Marcus Rivera's voice spoke directly into his mind. Officer Rodriguez, you have been chosen to complete the justice we could not achieve in life. Protect Jennifer Martinez, expose Morrison's crimes, and remember that sometimes the dead must guide the living toward truth. Tell Marcus I understand, Rodriguez whispered. He's saying goodbye, Dorothy reported. All 3 spirits are fading. They're smiling, Officer Rodriguez. For the first time since I've seen them, they look peaceful. Rodriguez felt the supernatural presence disappear completely, leaving him alone in the utility corridor with evidence that would either make him a hero or get him killed. His radio crackled with Morrison's voice. "All units, be advised that Officer Rodriguez has suffered a mental health crisis and is considered armed and dangerous. He's broken into secured areas of the police station and may be experiencing a psychotic episode. Use extreme caution if encountered." Rodriguez realized that Morrison was setting up a narrative where Rodriguez's death would be justified as stopping a deranged officer. Within minutes, every cop in Riverside County would be hunting him. "Mrs. Chen, Morrison just declared me a rogue officer. You need to get to the FBI before he finds you. I'm already driving towards San Bernardino." "But Officer Rodriguez, what about you?" Rodriguez looked at his phone, which contained photographs of evidence that would expose 15 years of murders committed by the county's top law enforcement official. He was now the only living person who could prove Morrison's guilt. "I'm going to do what Marcus Rivera asked me to do. I'm going to complete the justice that 3 dead outlaws started 15 years ago." Agent Sarah Walsh received Dorothy Chen's call at 6:23 a.m. while reviewing case files at the FBI's San Bernardino field office. As the lead investigator for federal law enforcement corruption in Southern California, Walsh had been expecting something like this for years. "Agent Walsh, this is going to sound impossible, but my name is Dorothy Chen, and I have information about Chief Morrison in Riverside County. He's been committing murders for 15 years, and he's currently hunting a police officer who discovered evidence of his crimes." "Mrs. Chen, I need you to slow down and tell me exactly what's happening." "Agent Walsh, your sister Jennifer witnessed Chief Morrison commit murder in 2009. Morrison has been trying to kill her ever since, but she doesn't know because she thinks she's been living under an assumed name for other reasons." Agent Walsh felt her world stop. Jennifer Martinez, her younger sister who'd changed her name after a traumatic incident in 2009, had never told Sarah exactly what had traumatized her. "Mrs. Chen, how do you know about my sister?" "Because 15 years ago, I killed 3 outlaws who were trying to murder Jennifer on Morrison's orders. Tonight, those same 3 outlaws returned from the dead to help expose Morrison's crimes." Any other federal agent would have dismissed Dorothy as delusional, but Sarah Walsh had spent 5 years investigating Morrison's department for corruption. She'd found patterns of evidence tampering, witness intimidation, and suspicious deaths that suggested systematic criminal activity. "Mrs. Chen, where are you now?" "I'm driving toward your field office. Officer Rodriguez is still at the police station with evidence that proves Morrison is a serial killer. But Morrison has declared Rodriguez a rogue officer, and every cop in the county is hunting him." Agent Walsh made a decision that would define her career. "Mrs. Chen, I'm initiating a federal emergency response. We're going to extract Officer Rodriguez and arrest Chief Morrison based on your information." At 6:45 a.m., Rodriguez was trapped in the police station's parking garage when federal vehicles surrounded the building. Through his radio, he could hear Morrison coordinating a manhunt that was designed to end with Rodriguez's death. But instead of local police closing in on him, Rodriguez saw FBI agents in tactical gear storming the building. "Officer Rodriguez," Agent Walsh's voice came through a loudspeaker, "this is FBI Agent Sarah Walsh. We're here to extract you safely and arrest Chief Morrison. Signal your location." Rodriguez emerged from his hiding spot with his hands raised, and within minutes he was surrounded by federal agents rather than hostile local police. "Officer Rodriguez," Agent Walsh approached with her badge visible, "we need the evidence you discovered in Morrison's office." Rodriguez handed over his phone containing photographs of Morrison's trophy collection. "Agent Walsh, there's something else you need to know. Your sister Jennifer has been in danger for 15 years. Morrison has been hunting her because she witnessed him commit murder." "I know. We're mobilizing a protection team for Jennifer right now." At 7:12 a.m., Chief Morrison was arrested in his office by federal agents while attempting to destroy evidence in his hidden compartment. The trophies Rodriguez had photographed were seized as evidence in what would become the largest law enforcement corruption case in California history. But the most dramatic moment came when federal agents brought Jennifer Martinez from Phoenix to testify about what she'd witnessed 15 years earlier. "Jennifer," Agent Walsh said as she embraced her sister, "tell them what you saw that night in 2009. Jennifer looked at Chief Morrison through the interview room glass, seeing him for the first time since the night that had changed her life. "I saw Officer Morrison strangle a woman behind the Highway 60 truck stop. When he noticed me watching, he started chasing me. 3 men on motorcycles caught me and were going to kill me, but a woman in a car ran them down to save my life. That woman was Dorothy Chen, Agent Walsh explained. And those 3 men were sent by Morrison to eliminate you as a witness. Jennifer turned to Dorothy, who was watching from the observation room. You saved my life that night. And tonight, Dorothy replied, your would-be killers return from the dead to save it again by exposing Morrison. The supernatural elements of the case were never included in official reports, but the physical evidence was overwhelming. Morrison was convicted of 17 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. Ironically, to the same San Quentin death row where he'd sent innocent people during his career. Dorothy Chen received a commendation from the FBI for her role in exposing the corruption, though she never publicly discussed the supernatural aspects of her investigation. Officer Rodriguez was promoted to detective and became a specialist in cold cases involving potential law enforcement corruption. And Jennifer Martinez finally learned why she'd felt unsafe for 15 years, allowing her to reclaim her original name and live without the fear that had shadowed her adult life. 1 year later, Detective Rodriguez stood in Dorothy Chen's kitchen, which had been restored to its normal appearance after becoming the center of the most unusual criminal investigation in California history. Mrs. Chen, the Morrison case has led to reviews of over 200 suspicious deaths across Southern California. We've identified at least 30 additional victims and exposed a corruption network that reached into 6 different police departments. Dorothy smiled while preparing tea, moving through her kitchen with the same calm competence she'd shown while negotiating with supernatural entities. Detective Rodriguez, have you experienced any other unusual cases since that night? Nothing involving ghosts, if that's what you're asking. But I've learned to trust my instincts more, and to investigate cases that other officers dismiss as impossible. And Jennifer Martinez? Jennifer Walsh, Rodriguez corrected. She's taken back her original name and is working with the FBI to help other victims of law enforcement corruption. She's also become an advocate for witnesses who are afraid to come forward against corrupt officials. What Rodriguez didn't tell Dorothy was that Jennifer had privately asked him about the supernatural aspects of her rescue. She'd always felt that something otherworldly had intervened to save her life, and learning about the spirit's role in exposing Morrison had confirmed her intuition. Detective Rodriguez, Dorothy said as she poured tea, do you think those 3 spirits found peace? I think they found something better than peace. They found redemption. They spent their lives terrorizing innocent people, but they spent their death protecting them. Dorothy looked around her kitchen, remembering the night when 3 dead outlaws had transformed from her tormentors into her unlikely allies. You know, Detective, I still sometimes feel their presence. Not threatening or frightening, but protective. Like they're watching over the girls they once terrorized. Maybe they are. Maybe some debts can only be paid by spending eternity protecting the people you wronged in life. 6 months later, Dorothy received a letter that brought tears to her eyes. It was from a young woman named Sofia Rodriguez, no relation to Detective Rodriguez, who'd been one of the girls photographed by the Devil's Backbone Outlaws 15 years earlier. Mrs. Chen, I don't know if you'll remember me, but you contacted me anonymously in 2009 to warn me about dangerous men who'd been watching me. That warning saved my life and helped me avoid situations that could have ended very badly. I'm writing to thank you, and to tell you something strange that happened recently. 3 weeks ago, I was walking alone at night when 2 men started following me. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, I felt a presence beside me, like guardian angels were protecting me. The men following me stopped, looked around with expressions of terror, and ran away as if they'd seen something that frightened them. I can't explain what happened, but I felt absolutely safe, like unseen protectors were watching over me. My grandmother says that sometimes people who've done wrong in life spend their afterlife making amends by protecting the innocent. I wanted you to know that whatever you did 15 years ago is still protecting girls like me today. Thank you for caring about strangers and for fighting to keep us safe. With gratitude, Sofia Rodriguez. Dorothy showed the letter to Detective Rodriguez during one of his regular check-in visits. Detective, do you think it's possible that those 3 spirits are still active, still protecting the girls they once threatened? Rodriguez considered the question seriously. Mrs. Chen, after everything I've seen, I think anything is possible. And if 3 dead outlaws want to spend eternity protecting innocent people, I can't think of a better form of justice. Dorothy kept Sophia's letter on her refrigerator, along with dozens of similar thank-you notes from women who'd been helped by the scholarship fund she'd established with the Outlaws' money. Every Halloween, Dorothy left 3 small candles burning in her kitchen window, not to summon the spirits, but to acknowledge their ongoing presence and thank them for choosing redemption over revenge. Detective Rodriguez often drove by Dorothy's house on October 31st and saw those 3 candles glowing in the darkness. He never saw the spirits again, but he sometimes felt their presence, a sense that unseen guardians were watching over their community, protecting the innocent from predators who thought vulnerability meant easy targets. The case officially closed when Chief Morrison was executed, but Rodriguez knew the real story continued every day in the lives of women who walked safely through the night, protected by guardian spirits who'd learned that the greatest power wasn't the ability to terrorize, but the willingness to serve and protect. Dorothy Chen's 911 call had begun as a report of impossible supernatural activity. It ended as proof that sometimes the dead could accomplish more good than they'd ever achieved in life, and that redemption was possible even for those who seemed irredeemably lost. The Outlaws were finally at peace, having traded their earthly crimes for eternal protection of the innocent. And Dorothy was finally free from fear, knowing that her decision to fight evil 15 years ago had created guardians who would continue that fight for eternity. This extraordinary story proves that sometimes the most unlikely allies come from the most unexpected places, and that redemption is possible even beyond death itself. Dorothy Chen's courage in facing her supernatural tormentors led not only to her own peace, but to justice for countless victims and protection for future innocents. If this story moved you, remember, the line between hero and villain isn't always clear, and sometimes those who've done the most wrong are capable of the greatest good when given the chance to make amends. Justice doesn't end with death. It can continue in ways we never imagine, protecting the innocent and exposing corruption wherever it hides. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share this with someone who believes that redemption is possible, that the dead can guide the living toward truth, and that sometimes the greatest protectors are those who've learned the true cost of causing harm.